All right, so welcome back to another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different. One of our listeners sent in this transcript from the Real English Talk podcast. And, on the surface, it might look like it's just, helping people learn English.
Yeah.
But I think this one's got some hidden depths. It's basically this scenario about a workplace meltdown involving fruit mix-ups,
Yeah.
stressed out employees,
Hmm.
a manager who really knows how to handle a crisis.
I think what's really interesting here is that it's teaching English, but at the same time, it's like a masterclass in conflict resolution and really what makes a manager truly shine. So almost think of it like a business case study disguised as a language lesson.
Exactly. So picture this, okay? You've got this company dealing with not one, but two major client complaints at the same time. So you've got Mrs. Kumquat, who is fuming because she received purple imitation bananas instead of the yellow ones that she ordered. And then you've got Mr. Lime, who's got a shipment of pineapples when he's expecting grapefruits. I'd be annoyed, too, if I was expecting a juicy grapefruit and got a pineapple instead.
And it sounds funny, right? But this seemingly silly situation with the fruit mix-up, it actually points to a hidden business killer, order fulfillment errors. And these mistakes, they're not just about a few unhappy customers. This can snowball into a full-blown PR nightmare and seriously damage a company's bottom line.
And that's where we meet Tom, who is the employee responsible for these wonders. Now, instead of owning up to his mistakes, what does he do? He tries to deflect blame, even bringing up that Mrs. Kumquat was rude to him.
Yeah.
Not exactly a smooth move, right?
No, not at all. I mean, and this is where we see the importance of taking responsibility. I think when things go wrong, it's natural to feel defensive, right? But it's how you react that people will remember. Attempting to shift blame just erodes trust and it makes the situation worse.
Okay, so Tom's not winning any Employee of the Month awards here. But then you have his manager, Paul, and that's a different story. He doesn't let Tom off the hook, but he does it in a way that's firm but also constructive. He acknowledges Tom's sales skills, but makes it clear that this behavior needs to improve.
What I find really effective here is Paul's balanced approach. He doesn't just, reprimand Tom. He provides specific feedback. So he points out the impact of Tom's actions, not just on the client, but on the company's reputation as a whole. And that's how you set clear expectations for the future.
Right. Now let's contrast Tom's fumbling with Anna. She's the employee who handled Mr. Lime's complaint. And she not only resolves the issue, but she turns it into a potential new business opportunity with this Imperial Lemon idea. I mean, honestly, where can I get one of those?
Well, it really is quite remarkable. I think what sets Anna apart is her composure and her problem-solving skills. She stayed calm, professional, and even came up with a creative solution. And, that shows initiative and genuine dedication to customer satisfaction, which are golden qualities in any employee.
Now, I have to admit, when I heard how Paul praised Anna,
Yeah.
I was mentally taking notes. It was like a master class in how to motivate your team. He doesn't just say good job. He uses phrases like, well done, you were in a difficult situation and handled it well, and I'm really impressed.
Those phrases, they might seem simple, but they pack a punch. Because by acknowledging her specific actions and their positive impact, Paul's actually reinforcing those behaviors. And it's a subtle but powerful way to boost morale and create a more positive work environment.
But just as Paul's wrapping up his praise for Anna, he gets interrupted by another call, and you can practically hear the stress in his voice when he realizes it's from the U.S., most likely Mrs. Kumquat herself,
Yes.
ready to unleash round 2 of her banana rant.
And this unexpected interruption adds a whole new layer of complexity. Because Paul's already dealing with a stressful situation, and now he has to manage a potentially irate client calling from another continent. And, it really highlights the unpredictable nature of management. And the need to constantly think on your feet.
And yet, even with this added pressure, Paul manages to regain his composure and redirect the conversation. He assigns tasks to both Tom and Anna for the next day. Tom's got to call all the clients and confirm their orders, clearly a damage control measure. And Anna is tasked with investigating the root cause of the warehouse mix-ups, which is all about preventing future errors.
And what's so important here is that Paul is tackling the problem from both ends. He's not just reacting to the crisis, but he's putting systems in place to prevent it from happening again. And that's proactive management in action, focusing on both the immediate solution and long-term improvement.
So while this episode started with some comical fruit mix-ups, it's turned into a fascinating look at communication styles, conflict resolution, and the art of effective management.
Yeah, it's a great example of how even seemingly simple scenarios can offer valuable lessons in navigating the complexities of the workplace. I mean, there are layers upon layers to unpack here.
And we'll do just that when we return. We'll be back to explore some key takeaways from this episode and what they might mean for you, the listener. Stay tuned. So welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been unpacking this fruit-filled fiasco from the Real English Talk podcast. And you know what? The more we dig into it, the more layers I see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really a great example of how, a seemingly straightforward situation can offer a wealth of insights about workplace dynamics and human behavior.
Okay, so let's talk about those insights. We've got Tom, who's clearly struggling, and then you've got Anna, who's handling things like a pro. What's the key difference between their approaches?
Well, one major difference lies in their mindsets. Tom's approach is reactive. He's focused on deflecting blame and avoiding responsibility, which ultimately just makes the situation worse. And then Anna, on the other hand, she demonstrates a proactive mindset. She takes ownership, focuses on solutions, and even manages to turn a negative situation into a potential positive.
I'm kind of curious about Tom. Do you think his reaction is common in workplaces? Is it just a case of, bad day, or is there something deeper going on?
Unfortunately, I've seen this kind of behavior quite often. Sometimes it stems from a fear of failure or a lack of confidence. In other cases, it might be a learned behavior, something they've picked up from observing others in the workplace.
That's an interesting point. It makes you wonder about the company culture. Is there a culture of fear where people are afraid to admit mistakes?
It's certainly possible. I think if employees feel like they'll be punished for owning up to errors, they're more likely to, try to cover them up or shift blame. On the other hand, if there's a culture of transparency and accountability, people are more likely to feel safe admitting mistakes and learning from them.
Which brings us back to Anna. She's not just competent, but she's got this knack for turning challenges into opportunities. It makes me think she's either incredibly lucky or there's something about the company culture that encourages this type of thinking.
I think it's probably a combination of both. Anna's clearly got the skills and the mindset. But it's also possible that the company fosters an environment that supports initiative and problem solving. Perhaps they have a strong mentorship program or a leadership style that encourages employees to think outside the box.
Okay, so we've talked about mindsets. Now let's zoom in on their communication styles. Tom's language is defensive, almost accusatory, whereas Anna's is calm, clear, and focused on finding solutions.
Absolutely. And this highlights the importance of emotional intelligence in the workplace. And it's not just about being nice. It's about understanding your own emotions and how they impact your communication. People with high emotional intelligence can stay composed under pressure, empathize with others, and navigate difficult conversations with grace.
So it's like having a superpower that lets you stay cool in a crisis and communicate effectively, even when you're dealing with a furious Mrs. Kumquat demanding her yellow bananas.
Precisely. And it's a skill that can be developed. It starts with self-awareness, recognizing your own emotional triggers and how you typically react under stress. And from there, you can learn techniques to manage your emotions and communicate more effectively.
Do you think Tom could learn those skills? Could he become more like Anna with the right guidance and support?
Absolutely. I think with the right support system, whether it's through mentorship, training, or simply a more positive work environment, Tom can definitely develop those skills. It takes time and effort, but it's definitely possible.
Okay, so this episode, which started as a funny anecdote about fruit confusion, has become a deep dive into workplace dynamics, emotional intelligence, and the impact of company culture.
It's a reminder that even the most seemingly mundane interactions can offer valuable insights into human behavior and organizational dynamics. And for you, the listener, it's a chance to reflect on your own experiences and perhaps identify areas for growth.
And speaking of growth, when we come back, we'll explore some actionable takeaways from this episode and how you can apply these lessons to your own life, both professionally and personally. Stay tuned.
All right, so welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been dissecting this workplace drama from the Real English Talk podcast, and now it's time to bring it home. And how can you, the listener, take these insights and apply them to your own life, whether it's at work, at home, or even just dealing with like a misplaced online order?
Well, let's start with one of the most powerful lessons we've uncovered: owning your mistakes. We saw how Tom's attempts to deflect blame only made things worse, while Anna's willingness to take responsibility earned her respect and recognition. Yeah, and it is so easy to get defensive when things go wrong.
Yeah.
But you're right, owning up to a mistake, even a small one, can actually boost your credibility. It shows you're honest and committed to doing better.
Exactly. And it's not just about saying, I messed up. It's about taking action to fix the situation. Remember, Anna didn't just apologize for the pineapple mix-up. She proactively found a solution that benefited everyone.
So the takeaway here is to shift from, you know that it's not my fault, to how can I make this right?
Yeah.
That change in mindset can make a huge difference in any situation, whether it's a work project or a personal disagreement.
Now, another key lesson we can all learn from is the importance of clear and effective communication. We saw how Anna's communication style was calm, direct, and solution-oriented, even when she was dealing with a frustrated client.
It's almost like she had this inner Zen master guiding her words. She never got flustered or emotional, which is something I definitely struggle with sometimes.
Well, that's where emotional intelligence comes in. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about understanding and managing them effectively. People with high emotional intelligence are able to communicate clearly and calmly, even in stressful situations.
So it's about recognizing when you're getting heated and taking a step back before you say something you'll regret. Is that something you can learn? Or are some people just naturally better at it?
The good news is that emotional intelligence is a skill that can be developed. It starts with self-awareness, understanding your own emotional triggers and how you tend to react under pressure. There are also techniques you can practice, like mindful breathing, or taking a moment to pause before responding.
Oh, I love that idea of hitting the pause button. Sometimes I just need to take a breath and remind myself that it's not the end of the world.
And remember, communication is a two-way street. It's not just about expressing yourself clearly. It's also about actively listening to the other person. Try to really understand their perspective, even if you don't agree with it. Oh, that's such an important point. Sometimes I'm so focused on getting my own point across that I forget to really listen to what the other person is saying.
So the next time you find yourself in a challenging conversation, try practicing active listening. Pay attention to the other person's words, their tone of voice, their body language. Ask clarifying questions to make sure you understand their point of view.
It's almost like putting on your detective hat, gathering all the clues before you jump to any conclusions.
Exactly. And remember, even if you don't agree with the other person, you can still validate their feelings and acknowledge their perspective. That can go a long way in de-escalating conflict and finding common ground.
So we've talked about owning mistakes, communicating effectively, and developing emotional intelligence. Are there any other key takeaways from this episode that we should keep in mind?
Well, this episode also highlights the importance of continuous learning and growth, whether it's through formal training programs and mentorship opportunities, or simply reflecting on our own experiences. There's always room for improvement. Yeah, it's like that saying, every day is a school day. Even a simple podcast episode about fruit mix-ups can offer valuable lessons if we're open to learning.
Exactly. So as you go about your week, I encourage you to reflect on what we've discussed today. How can you be more accountable for your actions? How can you communicate more effectively? How can you cultivate greater emotional intelligence?
These are great questions to ask ourselves, and not just in our professional lives, but in all aspects of our lives.
Remember, the world is full of learning opportunities. If we're willing to pay attention and be open to growth.
And on that note, we wrap up this deep dive into the surprisingly insightful world of workplace dynamics and personal growth. We hope you've enjoyed exploring this episode with us. Until next time, keep those brains engaged and those communication skills sharp.